There has been a lot of discussion on the subject of wage inequality in the United States. In March of 2017, the United States population rose to over 325 million people. For that year, the gross domestic product, GDP, was $19.3 trillion, or $59,000 per capita. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, in 2016, 13%, or 41 million people, were in poverty in the United States. About 30% of workers in the U.S. were paid under $20 an hour. About 14% were paid under $12. According to the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System, in 2018, the combined total wealth of United States households was estimated at around $100 trillion. In 2017, the top 20% of households owned 90% of all wealth assets in the United States. Anyone in the bottom 60% of Americans owned either very little, nothing, or negative wealth assets. In a country as rich as the United States, a universal basic income, or UBI, shouldn't be needed. But we as a nation have collectively dug our lower income citizens into a financial and wealth asset hole that without luck of opportunity is very hard to work your way out of. People in or near the poverty level often have one primary goal: survival. Caring about engaging in sustainable practices or investing their money for the future is not a luxury they have time for or the incomes for. Much of the crime, poverty, educational achievement discrepancies, and workplace hostility in the United States is a result of the low-wage system failing workers. A universal basic income is not a solution to this problem, but it is a tool we might be able to use to create better pathways away from poverty in the United States. This proposal theorizes that for a universal basic income to be successful, it needs to have financial incentives built into its recipient payment amounts. The following is an example of how a UBI could be successful in the United States and shift financial resources to underserved populations and issues facing the nation. A universal basic income credit, or UBI, is a basic amount of income for every man, woman, child, and person on the gender spectrum that's a citizen or legal resident of the United States. The UBI in this proposal suggests the creation of a tier system where any adult qualifies to receive $450 a month or $5,400 per year. Adults that work a minimum of 200 to 400 hours per year would qualify to receive $600 a month or $7,200 per year. Additional tiers would follow similar increases in payment amounts. Anyone working full-time hours would qualify for the top two tiers of $15,000 and $18,000 a year. Children and students would have their own tier system. Children prior to the first grade would qualify for $350 a month or $4,200 per year. Children in the first grade would qualify to receive $450 per month or $5,400 per year, and an additional $50 per month or $600 per year of schooling completed. For example, take a single mother of four who struggles to provide for her family but works over 1,600 hours per year. She would qualify for $1,500 a month or $18,000 for the year. Her oldest child is in the 5th grade, so they would qualify for $7,800 for the year. The next is in the 2nd grade and they would qualify for $6,000 for the year. The following is in kindergarten and they would qualify for $4,200 for the year. Her last child is a toddler who would also qualify for $4,200 for the year. Her household's UBI would be $40,200 for the year. Over the year, she worked as a receptionist for an office, making about $24,000. With the UBI, that would bring her pre-tax household income to $64,200. This might seem like another government spending program, but it's important to remember the incentive structure. For example, take the same single mother. 1 month after receiving her household UBI, she loses her job. She decides not to or can't find a new job. The UBI in this proposal's payment amount is pegged to previous year activities. If she worked less than an average of 200 hours over the course of the upcoming UBI year, she would only qualify for the lowest tier of $450 a month, or $5,400 a year. All of her kids did their part in attending school over the year and received their UBI increase amount. Her household's UBI would be $30,000 for the year, and her income would only be $2,000 for that year. With the UBI, that would bring her pre-tax household income to $32,000. Unlike most welfare programs, this program does not penalize people for raises in their income level, but does tie benefit payment amounts to hours worked over the course of a year. It incentivizes recipients to maintain a certain level of personal accountability to maximize benefits and increase their financial mobility. What a person or family receives in this UBI is directly related to the activities they engage in. Up until the turn of the last century, most records were kept on physical hard copies, making the process of filing, securing, and retrieving information very time-consuming and expensive. But today, records can be created, secured, filed, and retrieved in seconds. Due to the structure of this UBI and the benefits of today's technology, it would be very difficult for people to abuse this UBI program without creating outlier data in the system files. This system would create an incentive structure that rewards basic participation and self-care in our society, while ensuring everyone that follows basic rules and qualifiers has something to work with. If everyone took advantage of the UBI program, it could cost about $3.95 trillion a year in recipient payments and program operation cost. However, because everyone in the United States is not in a financially distressed position, program participation would likely be about 50 to 75% of the total population. The program would likely cost $1 to $3 trillion a year. If the UBI's program spurs real GDP growth of 4 to 6% a year, the program should pay for itself within the first 20 years. The program could be financed several ways, but ultimately would be paid for through increases in gross domestic product and federal government tax revenues. For this system to work, federal government tax revenues would need to be 30% of GDP. Individual tax rates would likely need some adjusting, with average individuals paying a little more and wealthy individuals paying about the same. With this UBI, business owners wouldn't have to worry about employees rioting in the streets about wages. They'd be able to put their energy into improving their value propositions and business operating structures. Whether it's updating equipment or further streamlining their production processes, their main concerns would be maintaining competitiveness with others in their respective industries. Under this system, consumers would have more income to spend, and their demand would let businesses know what industries were stable, declining, or ready for further investment. Unlike raising the minimum wage, under this UBI system, the cost of employing another unit of labor remains the same. The UBI could lead to some price inflation, but it doesn't directly put inflationary pressure on businesses or consumer markets. In the United States, average incomes and cost of living expenses are out of alignment for different demographic groups. This kind of UBI would likely bring cost of living expenses back into alignment for many American families and cause minimal inflationary pressure on most goods and services. This UBI isn't designed to affect current social assistance programs. They would remain unchanged. But if the UBI is working correctly, there could be a sharp reduction in able-bodied people applying for some of these programs, as the UBI is designed to incentivize better short-term and long-term financial mobility. If this program works and grows GDP and tax revenues, the U.S. government would have new revenues to fix other programs in areas of public concern that aren't working at optimal recipient outcomes, like the public education system and other social benefit departments. For the people serving sentences in the United States prison system, their UBIs would stop paying out but resume once released. Paying a prisoner's UBI benefits to the prison system as a way of offsetting some of the cost of incarcerating a person could create perverse incentives in how people are sentenced. The UBI in this proposal leaves the minimum wage system alone and creates new pathways to reaching real middle-class income levels. It places a monetary number on things people do that add value to our society, such as taking care of their families, getting a basic education, and keeping a job. It doesn't support the dismantling of our current social security nets, suggesting the UBI be an additional benefit to them. This UBI is designed to improve accountability and create a higher baseline financial incentive structure for the United States economy. If this kind of UBI is implemented successfully, it could become the nation's golden gauntlet to a reduction in crime, poverty, poorly educated decision makers, and the flourishing of all of its collective human capital. It's important to take all of this into account before you make your final judgment on the subject of universal basic income or raising the minimum wage as a way to combat income inequality in the United States. One is vastly superior in its potential long-term benefits to our collective, national, and global well-being.